The rain hammered against the glass of the small hospital room that had become my world. Machines hummed beside me, their rhythms mocking the silence that filled the space where her voice used to live. I still remember that day, the day she walked out. Her perfume lingered longer than her goodbye. "James, I can't do this anymore," she said, her words trembling, though her eyes were cold. "You'll never walk again. I can't raise a child alone and take care of you. I need to think about my future." And with that, she turned her back on me, on us. Our 2-year-old daughter, Amelia, cried in the corner as the door clicked shut. I wanted to scream, to beg her to stay, but my body was a prison, numb from the waist down. Doctors had said it was a miracle I survived the car crash. "You should be grateful to be alive," they told me. Grateful? I had lost my wife, my mobility, my dignity. The man who once built skyscrapers could now barely lift himself from a bed. But that night, as I lay staring at the ceiling, I made a silent vow. Asterisk if I can't walk, I'll crawl. If I can't crawl, I'll rise another way. Asterisk for Amelia. Weeks turned into months of painful therapy. Muscles screamed, sweat dripped, and I fell again and again. But each fall whispered something powerful. Not yet. It was during one of those therapy sessions that I met Evelyn, my physiotherapist. She didn't see a cripple. She saw a man on fire. "You still have fight in your eyes," she said once, tightening the brace around my legs. "That's rarer than strength." And she was right. With her guidance and my will, I took my first trembling steps 8 months later. The room erupted with cheers, but I only saw one thing in my mind: Amelia's smile. The first thing I did when I could walk steadily again was to visit her. My ex-wife had taken her and moved in with another man, a wealthy entrepreneur named Colin, known for his charm and ruthless business tactics. When I arrived at their mansion, dressed in the plain clothes of a man rebuilding his life, the guard stopped me. "Sir, do you have an appointment?" "No," I said quietly, "but tell her James is here." He made a call, frowned, and shook his head. "She says she doesn't know any James." The words hit harder than any crash ever could. I stood there for a long moment, the humiliation burning in my chest. But that fire, that same fire that helped me walk again, didn't die. Instead, I turned it into purpose. I started small, using my background in construction and engineering to design modular homes for disabled veterans. The company grew faster than I expected. Investors called, newspapers wrote articles, and within 3 years, I was standing on the stage of an international innovation conference, presenting my invention to the world. They called me the man who built himself again. That night, I received a message from an unknown number. "James, is it really you? I saw you on TV. Amelia has been asking about you." It was her. I stared at the message for a long time before replying, my fingers trembling over the keyboard. "Yes, it's me. I'd like to see my daughter." She agreed. When I arrived at her house again, this time in a black sedan and tailored suit, the same guard greeted me, only this time with a bow. My ex-wife stood by the door, looking smaller than I remembered. Her eyes darted from my cane to my confident smile. "You're walking," she whispered. "I told you I would," I said, my voice steady. Then Amelia ran toward me, her little arms wrapping around my waist. "Daddy, you came." For the first time in years, my knees almost gave out, not from weakness, but from overwhelming emotion. I lifted her, held her close, and whispered, "I never stopped coming back to you." Her mother watched, tears streaking her face. "James, I made a mistake," she said quietly. "I thought you'd never." I cut her off gently. "You thought wrong." But before I could turn to leave, a tall man stepped out from behind her. Colin. He looked at me with the smugness of someone used to winning. "So this is a famous, self-made hero," he said with a faint smirk. "Congratulations on your comeback. But you should know, Amelia belongs in a real home now." I tightened my grip on my daughter. "A real home," I said slowly, "isn't built with money. It's built with love, and you wouldn't know the first thing about that." He laughed. Big words for a man who once begged his wife not to leave him. I looked him in the eyes and said, "And yet here we are, you standing in the shadow of what I became." There was silence. My ex-wife lowered her gaze, torn between guilt and disbelief. But this wasn't the end. I could sense it, because deep down, I knew Colin wasn't finished trying to destroy what little I had rebuilt, and what happened next would test everything I'd fought so hard to regain. Colin's smile didn't fade. It deepened, sharp as the edge of a knife. "You think you won something here, James?" he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping low. "You don't even realize whose world you're walking into." I stood still, feeling Amelia's small heartbeat thudding against my chest. "I'm not here to play games, Colin. I came for my daughter. That's all." He chuckled. "You think it's that simple? You can't just disappear, reappear on the news, and expect to take what's mine." "She's not yours," I said evenly. "She's mine." For a second, something dark flickered in his eyes, a mixture of anger and fear. My ex-wife, Olivia, stepped between us, her hands trembling. "Colin, stop," she whispered. "This isn't the place." But he brushed her off. "No, let him hear me out. Men like you love the comeback story, the broken man who rises again. But you'll learn soon enough that not all stories end in applause." He leaned in, close enough that I could smell the expensive whiskey on his breath. "You built your company from nothing? Good for you. I'll buy it. And when I do, I'll make sure you lose it all over again." I met his gaze without blinking. "Then I guess you'll have to learn that I don't break twice." For a moment, we just stood there, two men bound by pride and something uglier, possession. He wanted control, not just of Olivia, but of everything connected to her, even the pieces of my life I'd rebuilt. That night, after I left their house, the city lights blurred to the car window like fading stars. Amelia had clung to me, asking when I'd come again. I promised her soon. I didn't tell her how much danger soon might carry. Back home, Evelyn noticed a tension in my shoulders as I entered. She was the only person who had seen every fracture of me, and somehow believed there was still gold in the cracks. She was there, wasn't she? Evelyn asked gently, closing the door behind me. "Yes," I said quietly. "And he was too." She frowned. "The man she's with?" I nodded. "Colin, he's not just wealthy, he's ruthless." I saw it in his eyes. "Then you need to be careful," she warned. "Men like that don't like losing, especially to someone they think is beneath them." I sighed, sinking into the chair. He threatened to buy my company. It wasn't just an insult, it was a promise. Evelyn walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Then don't give him the chance. You've come too far, James. You didn't rebuild your life just to let someone tear it apart again." Her words grounded me, but they also stirred something else, a quiet fear, because I knew Colin's reputation. The man didn't fight fair. He didn't threaten what he couldn't destroy. A week later, I got a call from my business partner, Leo. His voice was tight. "James, we got a problem. Someone's trying to buy out our investors." "Who?" I asked, though I already knew. "Name's Colin Warren," Leo said. "He's offering double their shares value. Some of them are already taking it." The next few days were chaos. Emails, calls, silent boardroom whispers. My dream, the company that carried me from the ashes, was under siege. Colin was playing his game with money and influence, and I was losing ground. But I had something he didn't. Resilience born of ruin. When you crawl through fire, a man waving flames doesn't scare you. Instead of reacting, I observed. I started digging into Colin's past, using contacts I'd made through Foundation. It didn't take long to uncover cracks in his empire. Shady contracts, silent lawsuits, whispers of fraud. He'd built his fortune on illusion. Leo and I worked through the nights, gathering evidence quietly. Meanwhile, I continued visiting Amelia under the pretense of co-parenting. Olivia didn't stop me. She seemed changed. The coldness she once wore like armor was gone, replaced by a kind of weary regret. One evening, as Amelia played with her dolls, Olivia approached me in the garden. "She talks about you every night," she said softly. "You become her hero." "She's mine too," I said. "Always has been." Olivia hesitated before speaking again. "Colin's been different lately. Angry. Paranoid. I think he knows you're planning something." I looked at her carefully. "And what do you want, Olivia?" Her eyes welled up, tears she tried to hide. "I want to undo what I did. But I can't. I left you when you needed me most. And now, I don't even know who I am." For a moment, the silence between us carried years of things unsaid. "You made your choice," I said quietly. "But now, every choice after this one is yours to fix." Before she could reply, Amelia ran to us, her laughter breaking the tension. For that moment, the world felt almost peaceful again. Almost, because the next morning my office burned. The fire started before dawn, consuming the building like dry paper. Investigators later called it an accident. I didn't need proof to know it wasn't. Colin had made his move. Standing in the ashes hours later, the acrid smoke still rising around me, I felt the old pain again, the ache of losing everything. But this time, it didn't paralyze me. It fueled me. Leo appeared beside me, holding a folder. "We still have the data backups," he said, "and the documents. Everything you collected on Colin's safe." I turned to him slowly. "Then it's time to use them." That night, as rain lashed the city once more, I sat in my apartment surrounded by evidence. Contracts, photographs, hidden transactions. I was no longer a man crawling out of a wreck. I was a storm gathering its own power. Olivia called me again, her voice shaking. "James, Colin's losing control. He's been drinking, shouting. He says you'll regret ever crossing him." "I already did once," I said quietly. "I won't again." She hesitated. "Be careful. He's not who you think he is. He'll destroy you if he can." I looked out the window, where the reflection of the city glimmered like 1,000 burning secrets. "Then he'll have to catch me first." Over the next few weeks, I moved in silence, meeting lawyers, journalists, and private investigators. One by one, Colin's secret began to surface. Newspaper headlines started to turn against him. His investors pulled out, his image cracked. But with every victory, I knew the danger grew. Men like Colin don't fade quietly. They explode. One night, after another late meeting, I found my apartment door slightly open. My pulse quickened. I pushed it wider, slowly. Everything was in place, except for one thing. A single photo lay on the floor. It was of Amelia. On the back, scrawled in red ink, asterisk, "Walk carefully. You have something to lose now." Asterisk. I froze. For the first time since the crash, fear gripped me fully, not for myself, but for her. I grabbed my phone and called Olivia, but there was no answer. My heart pounded as I raced to her house, the rain slashing the windshield like shards of glass. When I arrived, the lights were out. The front door was ajar. And somewhere in the distance, I heard Amelia crying. I ran inside, every instinct burning, every step heavier than the last, calling her name. "Amelia!" The sound came from upstairs. I took the stairs 2 at a time, the cane clattering against the wooden floor. The hallway smelled of alcohol and smoke. A door creaked open ahead. Colin's study. Inside, he stood by the window, his silhouette backlit by lightning. And in the corner, Amelia huddled, clutching her doll, eyes wide with terror. Colin turned slowly, a half-empty bottle in one hand, a pistol in the other. His face was flushed, his expression almost serene. "You couldn't just stay gone, could you?" he murmured. "You had to ruin everything. My business, my family, my life." I stepped forward, my voice steady but cold. "You ruined yourself, Colin. I just showed the world who you really are." He raised the gun slightly, the barrel trembling. "Maybe, but I can still take everything from you. Right now." Amelia whimpered. I took another step, heart hammering, my mind racing through every possible move. The air between us felt charged, like the second before a storm breaks. The storm outside screamed against the windows, thunder shattering the silence that hung between us. The flash of lightning illuminated Colin's face, twisted, desperate, and soaked in sweat. His hand shook as he aimed the pistol, the metal glinting coldly in the dim light. Amelia whimpered again, curling tighter into the corner, clutching her doll as if it were a shield. "Don't come any closer," Colin shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of his own madness. "You took everything from me, James. My business is collapsing. Investors are gone. The media is dragging my name through mud, and it's all because of you." I raised my hand slowly, my eyes never leaving his. "Colin, listen to yourself. You did this. I didn't take anything from you. You destroyed it all with your greed." "Shut up," he screamed, pressing his finger against the trigger. "You think you're some kind of hero? Some miracle man who crawled out of the dirt and became a savior? No, James, you're just lucky. And luck runs out." I took another careful step forward, my heart thundering in my chest. "Then take me, Colin. Leave her out of this." He froze for a second, blinking at me. "You'd trade your life for hers?" "Yes," I said quietly. "In a heartbeat." The words hung in the air, and for the briefest moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes, confusion, doubt, maybe even shame. But then the thunder rolled again, and whatever humanity was left in him vanished. He cocked the gun. "You think dying will make you a martyr? No, James. You'll die a failure just like before." I saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Time slowed, my mind filled with flashes. Amelia's laughter, her tiny hand gripping mine during therapy sessions, Evelyn's encouraging smile, the sterile white hospital walls where I swore I'd rise again. I moved on instinct. The gun fired. The sound cracked like lightning, deafening. I lunged forward at the same moment, grabbing his wrist. The bullet tore through the air, grazed my shoulder, but I didn't stop. Pain meant nothing anymore, not when my daughter was watching. We struggled, his strength wild but uncoordinated, driven by rage and fear. I slammed his wrist against the table, once, twice, until the gun clattered the floor. Colin snarled, swinging a punch, but I caught it, twisting his arm behind his back. "Let it go, Colin." I shouted, pushing him down. He fought, gasping, his voice breaking. "You think this makes you a better man? You'll never win." But before he could rise again, Olivia burst into the room, her eyes wide in horror. "Stop, both of you." She ran to Amelia first, pulling her into her arms. Then her gaze turned to me and to Colin. For the first time, I saw her truly see him, not as a charming man who promised her wealth and stability, but as a broken tyrant clutching the ruins of his empire. "Colin," she whispered, trembling, "look at what you've become." He looked up at her, his expression softening for the first time, but it was too late. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Neighbors must have called them after hearing the shot. Colin's shoulders slumped, his fire gone, replaced by the hollow stare of a man who finally understood he'd lost everything. When the officers arrived, he didn't resist. They led him away in handcuffs, his head bowed, rain pouring over him as if the sky itself was trying to wash away the madness. Inside the house, I sat on the floor, breathing hard, blood trickling down my shoulder. Olivia knelt beside me, tears streaking her face. "You saved us," she whispered. "You saved her." I looked at Amelia, who clung to her mother's dress, wide-eyed but safe. "She saved me first," I murmured. "She always did." The paramedics patched my wound, and as I stepped outside, the dawn began to break. Soft, gray light spilling across the horizon. The storm had passed, but the world felt reborn, cleansed. I stood there for a long moment, letting the rain mix with the warmth of the sunrise, and for the first time in years, I felt peace. Days turned into weeks, and Colin's empire crumbled entirely. The media called it the fall of a titan. Lawsuits, arrests, investigations, all came crashing down. And through it all, I didn't celebrate. I just kept moving forward. Olivia and I arranged shared custody for Amelia. She was healing, too, and though forgiveness wasn't instant, I could see she was trying. She apologized more than once, but I didn't hold her hostage to her past. People make choices in weakness. I'd made plenty myself. What mattered now was the future. The small hand that reached for mine every morning and the laughter that echoed through my once empty house. My company, reborn from the ashes, became stronger than ever. We expanded globally, creating homes for people with disabilities, giving them a chance to rebuild their dignity, just as I had. Every house we built felt like a quiet promise to those who thought their story was over. Evelyn stayed by my side through it all. She never sought the spotlight, never asked for credit. One evening, as we stood watching Amelia chase fireflies in the yard, she smiled at me. "You kept your promise," she said. "To walk again?" I asked. She shook her head gently. "No, to rise again. Walking was just the beginning." I smiled, realizing she was right. My recovery wasn't just about my legs. It was about reclaiming the man I thought I'd lost forever. Months passed peacefully, until one afternoon, as I picked up Amelia from school, a man approached me in the parking lot, tall, serious, wearing a crisp gray suit. "Mr. Carter?" he asked. "Yes." He handed me a sealed envelope. "This is from Mr. Warren." "Colin." I hesitated, my pulse quickening as I took it. The man nodded politely and left without another word. I sat in the car for a long moment before opening the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. "James, asterisk, you were right. I destroyed everything I ever touched. Olivia, Amelia, even myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your strength taught me something I never understood. Real power doesn't come from control. It comes from surviving yourself. Asterisk. Asterisk, take care of them. You're the man I could never be. Asterisk. Asterisk, Colin, asterisk." I folded the letter carefully and stared out the window. The world outside looked softer somehow. The sun had broken through the clouds, casting golden light over the schoolyard, where Amelia laughed with her friends. Some stories don't end with revenge. They end with redemption, even if it comes from the ruins. Years later, when Amelia turned 18, I stood beside her at her graduation ceremony. She was radiant, strong, confident, fearless. As she took her diploma, she turned to the crowd and waved, spotted me instantly. Her smile mirrored her mother's, but her fire, that was mine. Afterward, she ran to me, hugging me tightly. "You did it, Dad," she said, her eyes shining. I laughed softly. "No, sweetheart, we did." She tilted her head. "Do you ever regret it? Any of it?" I looked up at the sky, remembering everything. The accident, the betrayal, the pain, the battles, the triumph. "No," I said finally, because every scar led me here. That night, we drove home under sky full of stars. Olivia had moved on to a quiet life abroad, running a charity for single mothers. Evelyn still worked with me, and sometimes, when we sat on the porch after long days, she'd look at me and say, "Do you ever think about the man you used to be?" I'd smile, sipping my coffee. "Sometimes, but I think he'd be proud of the man standing here now." And in the distance, laughter, Amelia's laughter, rose to night, bright and untamed. That sound was my redemption, my beginning, because I realized something profound. Life doesn't give back what it takes. It gives something new, something forged in the wreckage, stronger and truer than before. I had lost love and found it again in a purer form. I had lost faith and rebuilt it through fire. I had fallen, but I didn't stay fallen. People often say miracles are rare. They're wrong. Miracles are simply moments when pain chooses not to win. And as I watched the stars shimmer across the dark velvet sky, I knew my story wasn't one of tragedy. It was one of resurrection. I wasn't the man who was left behind anymore. I was the man who stood back up. And for every broken soul listening to my story, I wanted them to know. Sometimes the most beautiful chapters begin right after the worst endings.